I think it's about time somebody objectively ranks all of From Software's titles. And yeah, this is going to be Demon Souls and up. If for some reason you disagree with this, which you shouldn't, make sure to comment. I am biased, but I am also factually correct. Coming in at number 7, I have Demon Souls. If you look at it through a broad scope, Demon Souls is for sure one of the most impactful games that has ever come out. Basically created the Souls-like genre. Without Demon Souls, we would not have Iron Pineapple's Steam dumpster diving series, and that's by far the best thing to come from Demon Souls. But if you compare Demon Souls to the rest of the games in the genre, Demon Souls is kinda ass. Demon Souls has really clunky combat. The level design is pretty good, but I don't really like the bosses, except for maybe the last one. The worst thing in Demon Souls was by far the world tendency feature. It's the most annoying thing out of all these Souls games. I don't know why that was ever added, but at the end of the day, you can't really knock Demon Souls too much because of how legendary it is. It's similar to Bill Russell. He completely changed the way the NBA played defense. But when you compare LeBron to Bill Russell, it's like comparing Yeet to Kanye West. Coming in at number 6, I got the first Dark Souls. Now the best thing about Dark Souls is everything being interconnected. Everything connecting to each other is some of the most genius design I've ever seen. But when you're able to fast travel with the bonfires and things really aren't interconnected, that's when the game falls off. And when I first played Dark Souls, I actually didn't even think this. I loved it all. I saw no difference between the first and the second half. And I literally disagreed with this saying that, actually, after the first half, it's kinda bad. Until I played it again. The second half is still good, but it is nowhere near as good as the first half. And I don't know if I'm just a sheep who can't get that out of my brain that the second half is bad, but I agree with it. But similar to its predecessor, it's just a tad bit outdated. It is still a GOAT in the industry. Coming in at number 5, I got Sekiro. Now I know the loud and annoying Sekiro fans are not gonna take this one well, but I do promise I have a good reasoning. Now, in layman's terms, I'm an HIG, high intellect gamer. So when us high intellect gamers play Souls games, we like to follow a fighting cowboy build guide because us high intellect gamers love making builds. Sekiro having one weapon and a couple little hand gadgets is not my cup of tea, and the fact that I even beat it goes to show how addicting the gameplay loop is. The combat in Sekiro cannot be glazed enough. I don't know what drug they laced in it or how they made it the way they did, but my god, Sekiro does it so well. And I'm honestly surprised Sekiro has the following and fans that it does because it's a pretty hard game to get into. It has a pretty high skill ceiling and not much variety. And what I mean by that is, in Sekiro, there's only one way to beat a boss. You gotta keep dying and trying. If you're in any other Souls game, you could summon somebody or you change your build. In Sekiro, there's only one way. And you also only have one weapon. But this just goes to show what an amazing combat system can do to a game. Now coming in at number 4, I got Dark Souls 3. This is a little awkward because Dark Souls 3 is my most played Souls game. And after hearing that, you guys are probably a little shocked. Oh, why is it in 4th place? For a couple good reasons. It does pretty much everything right and good, but the only thing that I would say is great in Dark Souls 3 is the bosses. I can't lie, the bosses in Dark Souls 3 are pretty alpha, but to me, I just feel like there's something tame about Dark Souls 3. Pretty much the whole world outside of the Ring City DLC is just kinda like it's not bad, but it's not great. Maybe I'm absolutely insane, maybe somebody agrees, probably both, but let me know how you feel about Dark Souls 3. Coming in at number 3, I have Bloodborne. Now Bloodborne has some of the most insufferable fans. Bloodborne is the best game ever, and its miles better than Elden Ring. But unfortunately, the insufferable Bloodborne fans are low-key based. Bloodborne is one of the most bizarre pieces of media that you can play, and I would genuinely pay like $1,000 to see Miyazaki and From Software like writing for the story and coming up with the world and the bosses, because I have no idea how anybody can think of Bloodborne. But glaze aside, I'm gonna hate on Bloodborne for just a quick second. How the fuck is it still 30 FPS? And all the main storyline bosses from Vicar Amelia to the wet nurse are all, man, I was gonna say mid to ass, but they're all just ass. Luckily that doesn't mean shit because the Old Hunters DLC is peak, and it is the second best DLC that From Software has ever made. And in terms of combat, the combat's peak. I prefer the Bloodborne combat a little bit over the Sekiro combat just because you don't have to rely on parrying and you can roll and shit. Even though Bloodborne doesn't have that many weapons and some of them are ass, they all just look cool. Oh, and by the way, the Bloodletter is like a top 5 weapon in the whole series. In second place, I have Dark Souls 2. Now I know that there's a thought amongst the P-brains that Dark Souls 2 is trash. And you know what? I take personal offense to that. I take personal offense whenever I hear somebody say, yeah dude, Dark Souls 2 is actually a bad Souls game, but it's a good game. Hey buddy, why don't you shut the fuck up? Okay, well actually adaptability ruins the game. Hey buddy, why don't you shut the fuck up too? I know more than just about everybody that Dark Souls 2 has a lot of flaws, but Dark Souls 2 has more positives than it does flaws. Dark Souls 2 took a lot of steps backward, but they took even more forward. Dark Souls 2 introduced twin blades. They introduced 1v1 arenas, and the PvP was actually good. It introduced dual wielding. There's crazy build variety, bonfire aesthetics. I don't know why bonfire aesthetics are not in any other game. Magic is actually good. It adds things at New Game Plus and New Game Plus 7. It has the best designed weapons and the best designed armor. It has the best hub in the whole series. And most importantly, bow and arrows are actually good. Do you know how fucking bad they are in every other game? In Elden Ring, bow and arrows are so bad that people use them as challenge runs. And I don't know why Miyazaki hates bow and arrows. Everybody listening, I hope you've tried a dual Avalon build at least once in your life. We're never going to get to play something like that again because of how much Miyazaki hates bows. But no, Dark Souls 2 is bad because it has adaptability. I'll see you peon Dark Souls 2 haters out the door. Now in first place, I got none other than the greatest game of all time, Elden Ring. Am I a bad person for sitting here and saying that I will look at you differently if you say some bullshit like, yeah, actually, Bloodborne's better. Now I remember when Elden Ring got announced at the Summer Game Awards in 2021. And when I saw that it was open world Souls, I had a 24/7 mental reminder of when Elden Ring was coming out. I was counting down the days before I could play this damn game. I'm so thankful to sit here and say that Elden Ring blew my expectations out of the water. I literally cannot pick my favorite thing about Elden Ring. I do know my least favorite thing about Elden Ring. If bows didn't suck in this game and I could do bow builds